All right, welcome to the first episode of 22-1 for PhDs with Ashley and Dave, where we spend 20 minutes sharing our two perspectives on building a successful industry career, and we leave you with one actionable step to help you start preparing today. So today we're tackling one of the biggest mindset shifts PhDs need to make when moving into industry, the shift from knowledge to profits. Because one of the biggest problems PhDs have when they first transition into industry isn't a lack of the right skills, it's a lack of how they think about their work.
That's right. Mindset shift in this series is going to be a big part of what we talk about. And it starts with the way I think of it is, well, what is created in these two different areas, right? As much as we like to talk about collaboration between the two, I personally wish they weren't quite the same, academia versus industry. I think there can be more overlap. The fact is, they do exist for different reasons. Academia exists to create new knowledge. That's really valuable and really important. But industry exists to create a profit, and that's because companies need lots of money to exist. They need investors. Those investors want a return. But more than that, profitability for a company is about sustainability, right? It's not about greed. I mean, we all hear stories about that, unfortunately, sometimes, but it's about sustainability. How do we make sure the company we're working in, creating valuable products and services, is here next week, next month, next year?
This whole topic of money is kind of a tough one. I don't know if I can speak for all academics, but I think there's a whole bunch of us that have a weird time thinking about money. We're taught to do a lot of our work for service rather than pay. So this can be like a hard mindset shift that folks have when they just kind of move out of the academic bubble, whether they're an entrepreneur themselves or they're working in an industry setting. Money is talked about, right? Sustainability is talked about, profits, all that sort of stuff. So I just wanted to make those folks feel a little bit seen that, if you're feeling a little uncomfortable thinking about exchanging knowledge for profits, that's not exactly what we're talking about here. It's more so how we think about the bigger picture of our work.
That's right, exactly. It is an uncomfortable topic. I'm still, I'm well into my industry career, and I still kind of have that sense that, well, I'm supposed to be giving things away, right? I learn things and I spread it around.
Yeah.
But that, of course, isn't the way industry works. There's a phrase that I've heard many times when it comes to money, because, of course, both academia and industry care about money. But something that describes the difference that I have heard is, well, academia spends money and industry invests money. And that kind of describes the difference that is common. In academia, you get a grant and you spend it to get the knowledge that you want. And in industry, you invest money to develop products and services with the hope that you will earn back more. And this is typically the way things work. Personally, I like to encourage people in academia thinking about how they invest money and resources as well. Why not consider how you can grow in the future? But that's really a big part of the mindset shift that we're talking about. And let me back out to something kind of to set up this whole series and not only the topic for today. I've heard a lot of feedback from managers in industry about their PhDs. We'll talk about some stereotypes as we go through this. We'll talk about where some of the challenges are. It's common for PhDs to worry perhaps they don't have the right skills or the right knowledge. That's not the problem. The big problem that so many of us face when we make the change is understanding the different environment, understanding that mindset shift. And a quote that I've heard more times than I could count from industry managers is, the PhDs on our team don't understand what we need from them. It's not about skills. It's not about having the right skills or the right background. It's about not understanding the environment and how to operate within it. And this will be a theme. This is a theme that will be relevant through all this whole series, but it's also relevant for this particular topic. That in a company, you have to think about investing time and money. You have to think about earning a profit so that the company will continue to function and prosper and be here next year as well. And that mindset shift can be a challenge. We emerge from graduate school thinking our goal, our purpose as a PhD is to generate new knowledge, to learn interesting things. And that's the value. Because, of course, in academia, we could publish any of that, and that was value. But in industry, we have to think about how we use our skills, those same skills, to generate a return, some kind of a profit to help the company be sustainable.
Absolutely. This quote is such a good quote. I think so many PhDs are focusing on developing more and more skills rather than conveying ways in which those skills that they already have can contribute to some form of impact, right? That impact in most times is making money, finding solutions that supports business goals. But impact is a lot of things, and you've already driven impact. I work with quite a few PhD students and postdocs who, for instance, might bring a application document to me, like a resume or a CV or a cover letter. And what they so often tend to do is just list out all of their skills, just all of them. That's all the bullet points is just skills. And in reality, that is no way communicating sort of these priorities or, sort of the impact that you can drive with those skills. And so this series is not necessarily about, resumes and job application documents, but that is sort of a manifestation of the mindset that those folks already have, right? And so demonstrating those, that those priorities is really important. And I want to emphasize, just want to emphasize one more time, focusing on money or making money isn't a bad thing. So shifting that knowledge from knowledge focus to profit focus doesn't mean that you're selling out. I actually recently spoke with a postdoc mentor of mine who was talking to me about this idea of charging for a product or a service, and just said to me, like, it's not, if you're offering value, it's okay to charge for it. You are taught in academia that you just have to do everything as a service, and that is not the case. And so I think starting that mindset is really important. This money allows you to keep your work going. It allows the company to keep going and for you to continue driving impact. So I
Yep.
like to think of it as the gas of a car, so to speak. It's sort of a necessity. And I think if we view it as a necessity and a way for us to have impact and influence in the market, I think that that can help folks think about it a little bit more.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in what you said there. I'll start with impact. That's a great word. Well, two words, impact and value. Both of those are good ways to think about profit. So let me put it differently. Anyone who's uncomfortable with the idea of profit, because, again, yeah, we aren't used to that when we're in an academic setting. We don't really think in those terms, but that is what you're doing in a company. The whole idea is a company provides solutions, they provide value, they do something to make an impact. And if they do that well, they have customers who will pay them money for that impact, right? They're spending money to get whatever benefit, whatever value the company's providing. That is a positive thing in most cases. Of course, there are bad businesses, there are unethical people. That's not what we're talking about. That's not the majority of companies. You want to find a job at a company that is doing great things, that is making an impact, that is providing real value. And that's just the way the world operates. That's what money is for. People say, hey, this is something I need for my life, for my business, for my kids, for my whatever, my health. And they spend money, and that's where that profit comes from. So really shifting your mindset to how to work in industry, in the end, it's about how do I make an impact? How do I provide value for the company? And your comments about resumes, CVs is a really good one. It's easy to, we tend to emerge from academia thinking it's about skills and knowledge. What do we know? What are the skills we can do? And sure, those are valuable things, but industry wants to know what can you do from them? For them? How can you help them provide value? And the skills and knowledge don't really say that. It's kind of like a toolbox Sure, tools have value, but they, they don't necessarily do anything. It's all how it's used and what you do with them that matters. And you, as a potential employee in a company, are the same way. You may have skills and knowledge, but how are you going to use that? And this comes back to that quote about the PhDs don't understand what we need from them. It's kind of like saying, hey, they have the right skills and knowledge, but they don't understand the right way to use it. They don't understand what we need them for here to help bring value, and to kind of put a fine point on it, they seem to think that they're here to learn new things and create knowledge, but we need them to help us create profitable solutions. That's the difference.
Absolutely. I think, we talked about how there's sort of this industry versus academic mindset, or just industry versus academia. You mentioned it at the beginning. And I hope that we can sort of eliminate that a little bit because in reality, your laboratory is kind of like a company. Like it is a small company. I think about that all the time. Like my PI is like a CEO of a small company. Depending on if you're a younger PI or an older PI, you might be in more like a startup versus an established biotech, right? So it's like there is so many aspects of a company already within a laboratory itself, the people, the team dynamics, the management, even marketing and sales and all these sorts of things that you do. Same with investing money into certain projects or keeping a budget, right? There are just so many ways. And so I think that's one way for graduate students to sort of begin incorporating this mindset might actually be in their own laboratory.
I love that idea of thinking of your research group as a company, your PI as the CEO. That is a really great analogy. And your group may not be in business, although actually I've known many that either spin out startups or truly think of themselves like a business. And how do we sell our services, some of our work to industry and get a profit and invest in more of our research? So I mean, there are great examples out there like that. But I think that's such a wonderful model for starting to build an industry mindset. And this will be a theme for this 22-1 series. It's easy to talk about industry and academia. There's an industry mindset and an academia mindset, and that's a simplification to describe the tendencies we see. Industry mindset is absolutely crucial to be functional and productive in industry. But as we'll talk about in this series, and here is just one example, an industry mindset to some degree can be very useful in an academic setting. There are absolutely times where you need the research mindset, the academic mindset for the core science that you're doing. But there are many areas, as we will be talking about in the series, where an industry mindset can be something you can leverage in an academic setting to great benefit, not just for your career, but for the functioning of the academic research group. And this is a good example. If you think of your group like a company, there are a lot of benefits for that. You might even consider talking to your PI about this. Hey, have you ever thought about framing our group like a company? We have a vision for the future and we want to grow. And how do we think about how we invest the time and grant money that we have now in a way that may grow and bring a return in the future so that we can do more next year or in 5 years than we can today? That's a great perspective.
Sure, absolutely. I might have to have that conversation. Have you ever thought about us being a company? Like, here are some strategies that I learned from 22-1 with Ashley and Dave, right? So, I think that's a really, really interesting concept. And I know that it's helped me think about the goals more of the whole operation. The goals aren't just publishing papers and getting grants at a larger scale. There's more to what's going on. Obviously, those are some of the outputs that we're driving, but there's a lot happening in the whole strategy as a whole. So I think that is really cool. And ultimately, the idea of providing value has been one that I think is really important for graduate students to start thinking of, considering ways on which they can provide value now for their company in a way, right? Or for their CEO or their PI, whatever that might be. And so I wanted us to chat a little bit today about this glorious concept of return on investment. This is ROI, which is something that I feel like gets thrown around a bit, but might help graduate students to begin thinking about a profits focused mindset. Would you mind explaining a little bit about ROI and ways in which graduate students can think about this?
Yeah, this is a great idea. So, just to be maybe set it in an industry setting first for anyone who's not familiar, the term ROI, it stands for return on investment. This is something that businesses have to think about all the time. And the simple way to think of this, or a good example for how to think of this, one example is if a company is considering developing a new product, one of the first things they will do is sit down and estimate the return on the investment because developing a new product will require a lot of upfront spending, a lot of upfront investing, both in time of the staff, resources, buying equipment, building prototypes, all this. And the hope is that down the road, a year or two, when they start selling it, and then over the next few years after that, they will earn enough money from the income that they make a profit, right? But we don't know that. And when we're deciding, do we do this product or not, we estimate, usually about 5 years out, it depends on the product, how do we think this will go? And do we think that in the end, this will be a profitable decision, a profitable path to move down? So that's how ROI is used in industry. But I think the idea of encouraging graduate students, postdocs, even to think about, and even their PIs to think about any investment they make in the time of their graduate students or postdocs or the grant money they spend, why not think of that as an investment? Sure, you hope to get a few papers out of it and some research knowledge, but if you think about it as an investment, now you're thinking about what else might we earn with this? Are there ways that investing in this project may help our group grow in the future? Think about it for your own PhD project. We all know the reason we're investing the time in it is because we want the degree. But is that the only value that comes from it? Is that the only value that comes from it for us? Is it the only value for our coworkers, our colleagues, or for our PI? Start to think creatively about what benefits will this group, this company of ours, gain from the investment that I'm making in my research project. It's a great practice, and you might be surprised what you come up with.
Absolutely. I feel like there are so many ways to just spin the normal actions of graduate school into some form of an ROI and at different time scales too. So what you mentioned is maybe the return on your research investment is a PhD, the
Mhm.
degree itself, which can take 5 to 6 years, depending on where you are in the world. Also, a paper can take several years. Getting a grant can take several more. And so I like to think of it sort of ways in which I can be a return on investment at different time points. So maybe one way I could be a return on my PI's investment is to encourage students to join our laboratory, right? To participate in recruiting new graduate students and sort of building our company, right? Or even training younger scientists, right? Training the folks who are going to be the future of the laboratory. That is also a way to ensure the sustainability and longevity of the company that I work for, or in this case, the lab. And so I think finding a way to be this return on investment at multiple stages not only encourages you to continue to be value as you go along, but also might encourage the sort of support from multiple people at different parts of your company, right? So your PI realizing that you are an ROI as well. So I think this
Yeah,
is a really cool way to sort of bring this mindset into everyday
yeah,
life for
I agree.
PhDs.
I mean, I did not think of this at the time when I was a graduate student. I wish I had, but thinking back, there are all kinds of ways that the work that I did and some of my lab partners did that turned out to be an investment in the future. I mean, one big one is a colleague of mine was working on a way of using lasers to deposit aluminum atoms in lines. And the details aren't so important, but that ended up earning us a spot in a collaboration with Harvard University, with the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And that put us in a position to do so much more. That right there was a huge return. And I wasn't thinking of it in those terms. If I had, that could have been a story I could have told when I was looking for a job that would have, impressed a hiring manager that I was thinking in terms of value and a return on investment. How many graduating PhDs who were interviewing for their first job talk in those terms, right? I can tell you that will impress a hiring manager and make you stand out from all the other concepts of what they think of as a stereotypical PhD.
Absolutely. I mean, the whole point of this series is to help folks start developing that mindset so that they can tell the right stories and sort of couch their experiences and their skills in a way that is not only, you know, impressive for a hiring manager, but also helpful for the time when you are in industry. There are so many things that you can do to prepare now so that the hiring manager that Dave gets a quote from is not saying anything stereotypical about you as a PhD. You are one of the good ones who has come in and sort of brought in this profits mindset and many other mindsets that we're going to be talking about in this series. So you could prepare now, and that's what we're going for. So this
Yeah.
week, the action, I'll go ahead and hop into the action for this week. So
Yep.
this week we want folks to think about how they bring value. Think of your lab, your department, your program, whatever it may be, as a company, and how can you be a return on somebody's investment? This is a
Yes.
mindset that is crucial for moving forward in industry, and you can start literally today.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Even better, bonus points on that action is can you then communicate this value to someone, right? How would you explain that to someone else? That can require practice as well. Figure out how to tell your value story to another person. That's it for this week. Next week, we will talk about the different pursuits in academia and industry. Academia focuses on pursuing a deep understanding of the problem as being solved or explored, whereas industry focuses on getting results. Stay tuned, and we will see you back here soon.